What's going on, conquistadors? Welcome back to Round Like Me with Scotty the Chunky Spaniard, a channel where we talk about a lot of well-rounded things. And it is Tuesday, which means it is time for a Tunes on a Tuesday. And if you joined us on Sunday, then you got to see my kids indulge in way too much sugar. Holiday treats. Well, as you probably could have guessed, for December, we're going to talk about some holiday music, but not just only holiday music, but a little bit of it. So, I got my Christmas lights up in my classroom. I've got my stocking. It's a basketball with a play on it. I don't even know what play this is. I used to coach basketball and for 16 years, and from elementary school all the way up into junior college, community college, and we never ran anything like this, but it's a cool stocking. It plays All Star by Smash Mouth. I'm not gonna play it because I don't want to get copyright flagged, and even it's a really bad cover of it, but I hang my stocking every year in my classroom. And the holiday music we are going to talk about today is an album that I really, really enjoy myself. I personally enjoy it a lot, and maybe you will too. And then we'll talk about this artist's music as well. The album we're going to talk about today is Brian Setzer's Christmas album. He's had a couple where he's added more songs and had these songs on it, but I believe this was his first one. It is the Brian Setzer Orchestra Boogie Woogie Christmas. This album came out in 2002. Oh, it's 15 years old. It was on Surf Dog Records. And if I had planned ahead a little bit better, I would have had another album out on Surf Dog Records as well. Gary Hoey. I'll hold the album up next week so you can see it. But Gary Hoey's Ho Ho Hoey, his Christmas album. If you like surf guitar, that's the one you want to go to. But Brian Setzer, why does that name sound familiar? Well, it's Brian Setzer from the Stray Cats, if you really go back in time. If you want a Stray Cats like anthology, this one, The Runaway Boys, it's amazing. I love this album. You got a drummer that stands up, you got an upright bass, and you got Brian Setzer tearing it up on a Gretsch. Oh my gosh. But the very first time I ever saw Brian Setzer was in the movie La Bamba. This is a great soundtrack. If you don't have this soundtrack in your collection, oh, Los Lobos does the theme song, originally done by Richie Valens. But Brian Setzer played Summertime Blues and played Eddie Cochran in the movie. And such a great movie. Lou Diamond Phillips, love him. Also was a guest on The Aquabats season 1. But so good, and I was like, okay. Years later, when I was buying my own music and, you know, not having to save my money like my parents always forced me to, and started spending way too much money, I looked into this Brian Setzer dude, and I was like, ooh, the Stray Cats. I mean, everybody's heard the Stray Cats strut, right? And when I started playing guitar, I wanted to play guitar. I wanted to learn how to play like Brian Setzer. I even bought that kind of tablature book that had the disc on it, and tried to play like Brian Setzer. I had my Les Paul, totally not the same thing as a Gretsch, and I was horrible. And I set it aside because Brian Setzer, if you have not listened to his music, you're missing out. So way back in the 90s, when the Stray Cats were done for a while, and before they were doing any reunion stuff and things like that, Brian Setzer had created the Brian Setzer Orchestra. And this was the first album I could find of his. There may be some out there earlier than this, but this album is from '94. This is way before the swing craze hit, which I kind of credit it to Brian Setzer, the whole swing craze. But this album's pretty good. The one after this though, oh my gosh, on Interscope Records, if you want to go get an amazing, amazing album, and here's that sticker again, that warehouse used sticker. It's Guitar Slinger. Go get Brian Setzer's Guitar Slinger. He tears it up. Oh my gosh, I listened to this on the way to work today. I was like, oh. The very first time I bought both these CDs, I bought them both used, and I was driving back to Orange County. I had just moved away from Orange County as a sophomore in college, and was driving back to Mission Viejo to attend a wedding for some friends, and threw these in the car. It was a Pontiac Bonneville, supercharged, and was driving this down south and had this on the freeway and was just like, oh man, I just melted into my seat because I was like, how is this guy doing this? But this album right here, oh my gosh. I mean, House is Rockin'. I mean, Don't Bother Knockin'. Hoodoo Voodoo Doll, that's the track where you're like, ooh, this could go swing. It's very jazzy. It's very old school rock and roll with his guitar tone, but it's so good. And then, as I'm pulling in, I'm kind of going through the tracks, clicking on my steering wheel, my little next function, and I get to this song, and it's track number 11, Hey Louie Prima. The snare solo at the very beginning to intro that, I mean, I can just see the guy having a blast. It's like he's looking at his set list. He's like, oh yeah, he's like, I mean, you want walking jazzy bass lines, you want ripping guitar, you want an amazing, amazing orchestra. Horns, vocalists, everything under the sun, like the top musicians, Guitar Slinger. This is my huge recommendation for this Tunes on a Tuesday. Oh my gosh, Guitar Slinger. So after Guitar Slinger, that's kind of when I feel, because this album came out in 96. So we got 94, the year before I graduated from high school. I know, it shows how old I am. Then you had 96, Guitar Slinger, and then that's when swing really hit. And that's when you got your Big Bad Voodoo Daddies coming out, Squirrel Nut Zippers are getting recognized, all these other bands that are, you know, hopping on the bandwagon of we need a swing band. I mean, let's be honest, it's really fun to dance to. I can't dance, but I can imagine it was really fun to dance to. Plus, orchestra people, like band people, were like, I can be in a band. It's kind of like ska, you know, if you played saxophone or trumpet or trombone, you're kind of like pigeonholed into staying with this, and then you're like, ooh, I can be a rock star too. And Brian Setzer came out with Dirty Boogie. And it's a really, really good album. If you like swing music, it's a great album. Some people go back and they listen to it and you're kind of like, but even the artwork has that cool oldies artwork on it. Even the back is super sweet with the trumpets and horns and stuff. Jump, Jive, and Wail. If you remember old Navy commercials. But there's, I mean, this whole album is amazing. Even has Rock This Town on it. A little throwback to the Stray Cats. But Jump, Jive, and Wail. And then my favorite one on this isn't even Jump, Jive, and Wail. It's Sleepwalk. Because I love old school surf guitar. Like the Gary Hoey Christmas album. But Sleepwalk. Oh, his tone. I would kill for that tone. I literally wouldn't kill. But that tone. I love old surf music, and this album was great. I have a lot of other Brian Setzer albums, and some even on my phone that I forgot that I had downloaded. But all have good tracks on them. You kind of get overwhelmed after a while with that sound. So the Brian Setzer Christmas album, good. If you like, you know, jazzy guitar, if you like shredding jazzy guitar, you want to hear a guy that has mastered the Gretsch, this is your Christmas album. You want something upbeat, something in the background at a party. I even think like Jingle Bells was on Jingle All the Way. I think that's the very first time I heard that. The movie Jingle All the Way with Arnold. And I think that's where I heard it first. But man, good stuff. So holiday album, my recommendation, Brian Setzer. Go check it out. Give it a listen first, because I don't want to steer you the wrong way. I was talking to one other person on our channel who went and like really wanted to go find that last No Doubt album and went and spent the money. And I was like, oh, I hope they like it. I hope they like it. Because when you're spending money, I mean, that's something you're invested in. I don't want to, you know, send you down the wrong path. And they liked the album, so I was like, oh, huge relief. Now, transitioning We already talked about one soundtrack, La Bamba. There's one more soundtrack I wanted to talk about, and it goes along with the oldies theme. Okay, so switching gears. Another oldies sound, a movie you need to go see, and a soundtrack you probably need to have in your collection. I really don't feel like the band that did the soundtrack, I really don't feel like this movie got as much traction as it deserved. Eddie and the Cruisers. If you haven't seen Eddie and the Cruisers, it's part of my childhood, man. And the soundtrack to this, oh. The band that did the soundtrack was John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band. Go look them up. But after this movie, they were only known as like the Eddie and the Cruisers Band. Michael Perret, I think that's how you say his name, that guy. He got his like really big like breakout moment on Greatest American Hero. Oh, what a great TV show! Ah! Do you remember that show? The guy who could fly, he got his suit from Aliens, had one of the best theme songs. I mean, 80s had the best theme songs for any show ever. A-Team. Oh. And then, I mean, you remember not Wonder Years, you remember Family Ties, you remember like all of these shows, and Greatest American Hero had one of the best theme songs ever, if you don't remember. It was the whole like, believe it or not, I'm walking on air. Oh, everybody knows that song. Come on, I think they're even using it in a commercial now. But he was on Greatest American Hero, and then he was in Eddie and the Cruisers. Legendary status after that movie in my mind. But John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band did all the songs on here. Tender Years, The Dark Side, that piano intro. Dark side is coming down, nothing is real. Oh my gosh, dude. I'm losing my mind thinking about this. Runaround Sue, Boardwalk Angel. Oh man, it makes you want to be back in that time in the summer on a boardwalk listening to that song. Oh, this movie, so good, so good. Then they came out with Eddie and the Cruisers 2 later on, and it had more of a rock-like vibe. Eddie lives, so spoiler alert, Eddie lives. Another great album. John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band did this album too. And then, sadly, they came out with 2 other albums, but it says the voice of Eddie and the Cruisers. John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band, voice of Eddie and the Cruisers. And you're like, man, that sucks. You were a great band, and you had to be stuck behind the name of the voice of Eddie and the Cruisers. Oh, so if you haven't, your job this holiday season, besides to watch Die Hard, which is the greatest holiday movie ever, and I will probably wear my Die Hard shirt at some point in one of these videos this month, because John McClane is a hero. He's a national treasure. But after watching Die Hard and Gremlins and Elf and Christmas Story, you need to go watch Eddie and the Cruisers. Find it somewhere. Find it somewhere. And then if you're really interested, because Eddie gives some great advice, Eddie and the Cruisers 2. It's really, really good. He meets some kid who's like a shredder on guitar. And he's like, hey man, you gotta let it breathe. And he kind of teaches him how to, you know, play around all this stuff. And you're like, oh, it's so true. It's so true. And then go check out these soundtracks, especially if you like oldies music like I do. Even though I wasn't around back then, but Eddie and the Cruisers 2, and then go check out some more John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band, because I love those guys. They had just such a great, I mean, it does have an 80s sound to it, has an 80s vibe, but it's really good. If you like Bruce Springsteen, if you like Huey Lewis and the News, you're gonna love Eddie and the Cruisers. So good, so good. And I've been doing the little recaps at the end. I like doing the recaps at the end, kind of like summarizing my main points. So what have we talked about today? We finished up with Eddie and the Cruisers, a great movie, great soundtrack, and a great band that I don't feel got enough credit. John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band. Love you guys. And then we talked about some holiday tunes. Go check out Ho Ho Hoey. It's Gary Hoey's album. I'll have that in the next video, just to show you. But Brian Setzer, you want something that's like jump, jiving, and wailing? Not Waylon Jennings, but wailing like, wow. You want a boogie woogie Christmas? Then you need this Brian Setzer album, because so good. Oh, just that intro on Jingle Bells. And the horns. Oh, so good. And then go get you some Brian Setzer. This is a good one if you like swing music. And it has Sleepwalk on it. Oh, I'm gonna listen to that on my way home. Guitar Slinger, my favorite Brian Setzer album, because, I mean, what a perfect name too, Guitar Slinger. Because, for real. And go back and get some Stray Cats. The retrospective is amazing. It's really, really good, and it's gonna kind of transport you back in time. That's what all of these albums, that's what they do. All of these albums, the common thread is they transport you back to a time where you think it's, you know, a simpler time. I'm sure they had just as many problems as we do now. But for us, we look back on it and we're like, man, yeah, that was a simpler time. So I hope you enjoyed this Tunes on a Tuesday. Brian Setzer, Eddie and the Cruisers. Go get you some holiday music, get in the spirit. Some stores have had you in the spirit, or made you maybe made you so angry that you're like, I'm not ready to be in the holiday spirit. It just finally got cold here in California. I mean, like today it's really cold. I got my flannel on and everything else. But I hope that you guys are doing well at the beginning of this December. I hope that you go out and find some good music. I'm gonna be talking about holiday music and weaving that in every single Tunes on a Tuesday we got this month. May have to like layer it on a few of them because there's only so many Tuesdays in the month of December, especially before Christmas. So, hope you're doing well. Remember, conquistadors, be a better person tomorrow than you were today. And I'll see you next time on Round Like Me on Thursday, where it's gonna be an unexpected surprise for both you and me, because I'm not quite sure what I'm gonna do. But we are going to do a Storytime Sunday this Sunday. I'm super excited about that one. Be good people, and I'll see you next time. Take care.